Unnecessary intro song to totally waste your time. All right, welcome back to Merkley's Apology Hour. I think I might need to change the name of this channel to The Apology Machine. You know, what's funny is I hate apologies. I really do. You got to beware of good apologizers. I had a roommate who would constantly do lame shit, but he was a good apologizer, and so people would let it slide, but then the same shit would happen again and again. So apologies, and there's nothing worse than somebody giving an insincere apology. They say something truthful, and then they feel the heat, and then they apologize because they felt the heat for something, and they're pussies, so they apologize to, turn down the temperature. I hate that shit. I hate apologies like that. Most of what we know as apologies in the world aren't even apologies. They're just ways to weasel out of a situation that they don't like. But a real apology, a sincere apology, is among the greatest things in the world. There just happen to be very rare. I received an apology from somebody that I thought was sincere a while ago, about a decade ago. I was robbed at gunpoint, pistol whipped, lost 3 teeth in West Oakland at a birthday party. I've told this story way too many times. But it was at a birthday party for a friend of mine, a burlesque dancer, which is a polite way of saying a stripper. It was her party in West Oakland. And it was at the house of this band called the Yard Dogs Roadshow, which were a bunch of kind of, what would you call them? Tom Waits, kind of that hobo vibe, that was so popular back in the early 2000s. A bunch of really entertaining, half-talented people, white people. And they were living in West Oakland because they're poor, vagabond, it's like they're kind of aping the gypsy vibe, going town to town and, the traveling circus kind of a thing. Had all that style too. And anyway, I was robbed at the local liquor store, totally black neighborhood, West Oakland. And when I went back to the party, bleeding, with the booze that I purchased at the liquor store. And the only reason why I went there to buy the liquor was because there wasn't any liquor. It was this girl's birthday party, and they're all such cheapskates and broke-ass people that there was no booze there. And people had just the worst booze manners. When you show up to a place, you're supposed to show up with a bottle and put it on the counter, everybody uses it. But these people would show up with their own and keep it in their pocket. But if you put your booze on the counter, they'd be happy to dip from yours. You know the type. Users. But so I get pistol whipped and robbed and go back to this house, and nobody mentions it. They all know that it happened. I'm pissed, really upset. And these people are just like, oh, let's pretend it didn't happen. And then even after, when I tried to get them to help me find the person that did it, they were like, oh, no, it's not really our neighborhood. We're just, this is the black neighborhood. I'm like, what are you talking about? Just because the kid was black that robbed me, you got to let him go because, what, I deserved it because I'm white? What the fuck is wrong with you people? Anyway, real eye-opener about San Francisco liberalism. We're gentrifiers. We don't have a place to say. Anyway, the guy, one of the leader of the Yard Dogs Roadshow, years later, called me up and just out of the blue and said he was sorry for acting that way. Said, I've been thinking about it for years and it was wrong. We abandoned you. You were at our house, and he gave me what seemed to be a sincere apology. Of course, I put two and two together a little bit after that and realized he was in an AA program, and that's part of the AA program is that you have to find the people you harmed with your habits or whatever and apologize. It still felt sincere, but it was prodded by the program. So anyway, the point I'm trying to make is there's not a lot of sincere apologies out there. But anyway, I'm going to make a sincere apology right now, and it's to a man that I dubbed Josh, the scary hippie guy. I called him Scary Hippie Guy, right? And he was a guy that I met through ska bands. Okay, this is the part where we get embarrassing. It's, again, this weird white thing where a bunch of white people in Utah, in Provo, Utah, the whitest of the whitest places on earth, get together and become racial, social justice bands and speak, the heroes of the black people. That's what ska was. Anti-racism. It's, you tell me how the fuck that happens, Anyway, it ends with Tyler Robinson shooting Charlie Kirk in the neck at the school that I went to in Provo as a ska band guy. But anyway, there was this other band. My band was called Swim Herschel Swim. I was a manager. I ended up writing most of the songs in the later days. I produced it. I put together all the shows, made all the flyers, and got less credit than I deserved, but more credit than the band wanted me to have. You understand what I'm saying? So I did more work than anybody should ever do in a band. I wasn't actually on stage playing any instruments, but I was at home writing songs and making compositions and making the album covers and producing them and delivering the tapes to the record stores and putting the flyers up on the poles and renting the buildings and bringing the other bands to... I was doing every fucking job, right? And I was trying to keep my head low about it because Lord knows there was guys in the bands that were upset that I would get credit for it, that people knew my name. Sometimes would be in public and people would go, "Hey, Merkley, you're that guy from Swim Herschel Swim." Meanwhile, the lead singer is standing right next to me and they don't mention him, So more credit than they thought I deserved, but not as much credit as I probably deserved, for just putting shows together, going to city council meetings, arguing with the town council. Anyway, I'm not trying to puff myself up as some kind of hero. I'm just literally telling you what I was doing. Running a business. I was doing the band full time, basically. But there's this other band that came up on our heels and ended up lasting a lot longer than our band because we lasted like 3 years, and then I burnt the whole thing down with our last album called Burn, Swim, Burn. When I burn something down, I don't hide it much. The album cover features this drawing that represented me. The album cover is my perspective of the band, Every character means something. It's subversive shit. It was me taking the credit that I deserved for that band and saying, look, I'm naming this album. I'm drawing the cover. The cover has art on it that is meaningful to me, and the other band members don't know what the fuck it means, but I know what the fuck it means, Not the most polite shit, but that's how I dealt with that imbalance of power. The fact that I was doing all the work and certain members of the band were just always trying to downplay my role. But this other band comes along called Stretch Armstrong, a bunch of short guys, you know, funny guys. And I remember them from coming to our shows. And these guys were super white, funny guys from San Diego area, in Orange County in San Diego, I think, you know, Mormon kids. And I found out that they had a band. I think I might have gone to one of their first shows or something at this little cafe. And I was like trying to be this positive scene guy, like trying to, you know, I thought of myself as this nurturer, like, yeah, you got to do it, you know. I invited them to open up for our band. I designed their first logo, designed one of their first T-shirts. The Scotty, the lead singer, ended up moving into my house, became my roommate, you know. And even in that situation, I give very little credit because it's like, you know, first of all, he became kind of a drinker and a bad guy when he was my roommate. Didn't pay me my rent for 6 months, and I had to put all his shit out on the street. Anyway, we made friends after that. But what I'm saying is these guys were all a core group of friends that came from San Diego. And one of the friends was this guy named Josh. I won't say his last name because, I don't know, I don't want to, but I deemed him because he wasn't like all the other ska guys. And the weird thing is I also wasn't like all the ska guys. I had hair down the middle of my back, and I looked like more somebody that would be in Alice in Chains than in a ska band. But he had big, curly hair and a goatee that kind of stuck out of his face. You know, like, you know that little soul patch thing that comes out of your bottom lip? Well, his curled upwards, kind of, almost like it was a tongue that was coming out of his mouth. It wouldn't lay down flat. He didn't wax it so it came up. It's just the way it grew was straight out of his face and kind of up. And I didn't know what his name was or whatever, and he would be around. He'd go to these shows, and he had this really intense personality, you know? And he was one of their friends. And these guys were super goofy, right? Stretch Armstrong, that whole crowd, super goofy. We had a goofy vibe too. Everybody was like into the Devo thing and wackiness, like the Toy Dolls. I don't know if you know that band. Nelly the Elephant. They were really going for that vibe, just silly, fun ska music, you know? And I called this guy, I referred to him one day as Scary Hippie Guy. Where's that friend of yours, a Scary Hippie Guy? You know? And Scotty just laughed, his Scary Hippie Guy. And then he just became Scary Hippie Guy. You know, everybody started referring to him as Scary Hippie Guy. But he was just so intense, and I kind of wanted to mock him for his intensity. He would go to shows, and I remember I went to see, he was a huge fan of Henry Rollins, like Black Flag. He was a punker, and he was serious, and he wasn't about the silliness. He was friends with all these silly guys, and he would kind of laugh it up when they were around, but he was the serious, the straight guy, the scary hippie guy. And I remember going to see Henry Rollins. I don't know why. I didn't like Henry Rollins. I think I got free tickets because when you're a promoter, all the clubs just let you come. And so I ended up at to see Henry Rollins. And I just watched Scary Hippie Guy, Josh, just fanboying out. I couldn't believe how much of a fan he was. Just transfixed on Henry Rollins. You know, and I think he ended up doing a band too, Scary Hippie Guy. I think so. And he was kind of aping Henry, wrapping the mic cord around his hand and just being really intense. And the reason why I kind of wanted to mock him is because I didn't feel like his Scary Hippie Guy attitude, his intensity was real. Because I'm thinking, dude, you're friends with these goofy fuckers. These Aquabats kind of guys. By the way, Aquabats is a band that came in the wake of Swim Herschel Swim and Stretch Armstrong, Mormon guys that started out their bands based on what we were doing, you know, or so I've been told, you know. And but so I thought it was a put on. That's what my thing was Scary Hippie Guy. Well, so the weird thing is that we're all doing this ska Mormon white guy savior to the blacks, you know. Just to, if you wanted to write a movie about it, it would be pure comedy. Imagine just a bunch of white Mormon people saving the black people. And this is in the era of the Rodney King riots, you know. In fact, we played a show in Long Beach at a what was it, a Masonic temple, right after the riots, you know. And I remember our lead singer was just scared as hell, like more than anybody. He was a real anti-racist. The songs that we wrote, all the lyrics had to be anti-racist. Racism bad, unity good. Hey there, Nazi boy, why don't you go away? I don't want to hear what you got to say, because you really make me sick. Yeah, you really make me sick with your Aryan nations and the KKK. These are lyrics from the band I was in. But never has there been anybody that seemed more uncomfortable around black people than this lead singer from our band. You know, just he looked like he was shitting his pants when we were driving through Long Beach to do this show. But Scary Hippie Guy, weirdly, in those days, when all of the rest of us were doing this racism bad, unity good, social justice warrior, ska band, happy, bringing everybody together, the specials English beat, you know. It was all well-intentioned, you know, but, you know, following what we've been talking about on this channel for a while, it's obvious that we had been programmed. Without programming, without schooling, without the media, without MTV, the chances are that some white kids are going to grow up and be heroes to black people they never met is zero. There's zero natural about that. That is 100%, if you have to have a case study and proof that programming works, you could make a movie about ska bands in the early 90s in Provo, Utah. And I would be right there at the center of it, because I promoted every fucking show, okay? But Scary Hippie Guy pushed away from that, right? And he started becoming a white nationalist and a pro-white. He was really just being like, no, I'm not into this. No, I'm not. And he started becoming a white nationalist. You know, and there's this weird thing that happens in the ska world. I don't know if you know about this, but there are racist ska people. They have a music called Oi, you know, and then there are non-racist. I've talked about this before, but the difference is they look exactly the same. Skinheads, racist skinheads, and non-racist skinheads. The non-racist skinheads listen to the ska music, and the racist skinheads listen to Oi that kind of sounds like ska. But Josh, Scary Hippie Guy, kind of started becoming an Oi skinhead. I think he might have shaved his head at some point, but he was known for this big fluffy hair. That's why he got the name Scary Hippie Guy. But he became that way, and I thought, what the fuck? How does this even happen? How does this guy, and I'm thinking this because I'm thinking Henry Rollins isn't racist, is he? He's not. He's not a white nationalist, is he? I'm looking at the lyrics. I can't see anything. I'm thinking, how does Scary Hippie Guy start becoming this white nationalist guy? Well, it's because he was serious. It's because when he was at a show, he was watching everything, right? I'm looking back on how I used to mock how much of a fan he was, but now, as an old man, I'm looking back and my memories are that he was paying attention. This guy was intense because he was always paying attention. When he was watching Henry Rollins, he was listening to every word. I didn't do that shit, okay? I went to bands, things like that. And I didn't start really listening to lyrics until I started writing songs top down, melody and lyric first. I was listening to the rhythm, the beat, the synthesizers, the vibe. I was concerned about the environment. Is it cool? Is it not cool? But not Scary Hippie Guy. He was lasered in. He was paying attention to everything that was going on, you know? And he moved over and became kind of a white nationalist. At first it was just like, you guys are kind of wrong about this stuff, and a little bit too much anger against whites, a little bit too much display. I didn't really even have long conversations with him, but anyway, until later. So years go by. I keep promoting ska shows, and I finally got my career to where the big agencies were calling me to do acts I didn't want to do, because when I was first promoting, the reason why I was a promoter is because it was a need, I needed to make shows. I didn't want to ask somebody else for shows. Nobody else was doing shows, so I did the shows. And I got to hang out with the bands, and I was in bands, and I was an artist, and that was the whole reason why. The whole fun of promoting shows was being an instrumental part of the art, and that meant I wanted to be with my fellow artists and whatever. But once you start doing the big shows and you're dealing with agencies and big band managers, well, they do everything they can to keep you away from the artist. They want to be the go-between. And so when I started doing big shows at the Delta Center and, high-stakes big shows, it was no fun because now suddenly I was no longer friends with the artist, but I was seen as the enemy of the artist. I'm just this promoter guy. And I was like, I don't like this shit at all. And I wanted to move to San Francisco. And so anyway, I cashed in my chips. I moved to San Francisco, and I thought with my partner, I can still do shows in Utah. I can travel back. I'll be that jet set guy. I did a couple more shows there, and then I realized, no, I don't want to do this. But the Scary Hippie Guy also moved to San Francisco, as well as some of the other band members, which was really kind of weird. That's a different story. But I found out the Scary Hippie Guy actually had a website for white nationalism and basically white advocacy. He kind of became like a Jared Taylor type. Jared Taylor, he's that guy that's like, we just have to look out for white interests. That's all we're really doing. I don't call myself a nationalist. I call myself a white advocate because white people have interests, And I would make fun of Jared Taylor, too, because for years I was this radical individualist. Racism is obviously stupid. I mean, if you're a racist, how could you be that's just the worst. What are you, a Nazi? So with my cockiness and my arrogance and thinking I knew everything, I thought, man, how could this Scary Hippie Guy go that far off? How could he become a Nazi? That's what I'm thinking. Of course, he didn't say he was a Nazi. He considers himself to be a white advocate. But I'm so cocky that I'm thinking I got to save this guy. I got to save. Now, I gave him a bad nickname. I was never really nice to him, never took him seriously. But now I'm still going to reach out like some kind of fucking hero. And I'm going to be able to talk some individualist sense into Scary Hippie Guy. Surely I'm smarter than he is. Surely once I explain, he'll see it my way. And so I looked him up on his website. I looked over it. And it was basically just filled with the stuff that Jared Taylor is still saying now. Stuff that I actually now think is completely sensible. Now that I've finally accepted that tribalism is real. And these other races are not looking out for white people. No fucking way. Not even close. But I got on the phone with him. And I tried to have this conversation, tried to be the fair, understanding guy, listening to what he was saying. And I was like, but don't you see? It's about individualism, man. It's not about race. And he's like, thinking back, I'm thinking, the guy was probably a hell of a lot smarter than me. Okay? And he's having to sit here and listen to me. And he's the one being patient. At the time, I'm thinking, oh, I'm the patient one. I'm the rational, reasonable guy. And look at me, how magnanimous I am and reaching out to a Nazi. You know, look at how fair I am. But I wasn't going in to listen to him or hear what he had to say. I was going in with his asshole attitude that I was going to save him from his bad thinking. And now me, I'm finally a recent convert to tribalism. I'm still new at it, you know. I always pushed a bit. The reason why I was able to have those conversations is because I did think it was stupid to always be against whites, and I pushed against all that stuff back then. My website was filled with making fun of lefties. So I thought that I had this position where individualism, man, that's the answer, dude. That's the answer. That's what you're not finding. Libertarian individualism. It's silly to be looking out for people just because they're part of your tribe. Tribe? Who's my tribe? I don't even get along with anybody. I don't have no tribe. This is me, fucking cocky guy, even last year. You know? And so, yeah, I got to apologize for that. I was working with what I had, but did I ever listen to him? Did I ever listen to Jared Taylor? You know, did I ever listen to all these guys that were sending out the bat signal and warning? I mean, this guy, Scary Hippy guy, was way ahead of the curve. He figured this shit out, this stuff that I figured, that I barely have come around to figure out, just within the last couple of years. The tribes matter. That it doesn't matter if you're an individualist. If your tribe is being destroyed by other tribes and you're an individualist, you are not helping. You're just marching your way into your own destruction. You know? So I've looked for him. I know his name, I've Googled him, and he kind of just fell off the map. He was at one point, believe it or not, teaching, I think, if memory serves. When I talked to him, he was in Berkeley, California, and I think he was like teaching or something like that in Berkeley, which I found crazy. And thinking back on it now, I'm thinking that he was a subversive white advocate at Berkeley. And I think of the conversation that I could have had with him at that time. I think of the things that I could have learned from this guy who was maybe a couple years younger than me, you know? But no, I had to be the authority guy. I had to be the know-it-all. I had to be I'm the guy that, you're supposed to look up to me. You're supposed to thank me for calling you. It's supposed to be an honor. Oh, God, just thinking about. I don't know, do you guys do that when you think about your former self and just think of how embarrassing it is? But yeah, that's what I want to say to Josh, the Scary Hippie guy, is you weren't scary, or if you were scary, it was me. That was me. You know? That was an admission. I was afraid of you. When I called you scary hippie guy, I don't think I really was afraid of you, but if I had to get all really super technical, you were projecting something that I didn't want to deal with. You know, I was, most of the time, I don't know how we turn it around. That's why I kind of would like to talk to scary hippie guy Josh. Now, he's so far ahead. I'd like to know what he's thought about this. For all I know, he's turned into an individualist. I don't know. Who knows? He might be onto some other shit. I'm lagging behind. But you know, it's no wonder the white women are all freaked out right now. The young white women, and they're all running around trying to protect Somalians that they'll never meet. They're all white women now are ska bands. That's what they are. Okay, Renee Good, she was a ska band. All these white ladies, they're doing what we did. The white men, the white boys did in Provo, Utah. We're the heroes of the Somalians. You know what's sad is these guys still have these bands. They do reunion shows. I made a tape about this. One of the guys in the band called me a Nazi and blocked me just a few months ago. They're still on that. They're still in Utah. They're still miles and miles away from black people. And they're still the heroes of the black people. The lyrics, same. I'm a hero. I'm a white savior. The white people that aren't like me are bad. Die, Merkley, die. There was a band called Die, Merkley, die in Provo. But yeah, it's no wonder the women are doing that, because so many of the white men, like me, and the little short guys in Stretch Armstrong, and the pudgy singer from my band, and the nerdy, long, tall guy, I love him to death. But these white people from Provo, Utah, the whitest of the white people, the good Mormon, raised to be good neighbors and kind and stuff, we appointed ourselves as being heroes of not our families, not our wives and our own children and our own communities, but instead, we, and, you know, again, the program, we were programmed, instead of looking out for ourselves, we started looking out for these invisible black people in distant places. You don't think the white women saw that? Of course they saw that. You know? The white men who did that don't deserve the respect of the white women. You know, it's when white men do that, they're basically saying it's like genuflecting to black people. Oh, we want to just, you know, placate and do everything the black people want. Oh, we want the black person in the band. I've said that before too, but man, every white ska band wanted a black. They just had to have them. Even No Doubt, for crying out loud. They're my friends, but they got Steve and Gabe. I love those guys. Well, Gabe more. Gabe just is the sweetest guy in the world. Steve is like, as soon as I started saying anything, criticism of black. In fact, when I got robbed in Oakland, you know, he, of course, had to take the side of the Oakland neighborhood. I'm like, dude, you're my friend. We're supposed to be fucking friends, and you're taking the side of these random black people that attacked me? Delete. Bye. You're not my friend anymore, Steve. No matter how many times I named his band Chocolate O'Brien. But he turned out to be not a friend, you know. So everybody's trying to become. We want the black guy. We want the black guy. Please, please join our band. We must prove that we're not Nazis. We must prove that we're not scary hippie guy Josh. It's all so very, very humiliating and embarrassing that plan, that programming that turned us white kids into ska band social justice warriors, the dorkiest, nerdiest variety. You cannot get more dorky and nerdy than the ska scene in Provo, Utah in the early 90s, of which I was the nucleus. I mean, it's pathetic. And we didn't pop out of our mommies to do that. That was schooling. Okay, that was programming. That was Archie Bunker. That was MTV. That was Pauly Shore. That was, we had a chance there for a while. When MTV wouldn't play black music, and then they were pressured into playing black music. What if MTV had just kept that policy? Just that little thing. Let's just imagine a ripple in the universe where instead of bowing to pressure, they go, no, actually, no, we're MTV. We play white kids stuff. We're not about the black music. It's not our thing. Imagine that one little switch. What happens to society? Is there Lollapalooza? Is there Rage Against the Machine? What's that? The switch. Is there massive borders? I'll tell you one thing, I'm drawing some loose lines here, but how the fuck are white women supposed to be thrilled about white men when they're in dorky fucking ska bands, genuflecting and bowing, and kissing the feet of any black person that walks by? Sorry about slavery, man. Pick it up. I'm sorry about slavery. I'm sorry about slavery. Look, it's no wonder the white women are out following suit. So not only am I apologizing to scary hippie guy, Josh, and I mean that, and I don't want to keep calling you scary hippie guy. I'm saying it now with as much affection as I can muster. When I say it, I'm saying that was a stupid thing to call you. It was a reflection on me, not a reflection on you. And if it was a reflection on you, you should, you should be always happy when an idiot doesn't like you. And I was an idiot, okay? And to the ladies, on behalf of all my dorky white men friends who silently just allowed ourselves to be programmed, and even though we had plenty of off-ramps, we had Jared Taylor, we had plenty of off-ramps where we could have said, no, we're not going to do the social justice warrior thing. No, we're not going to do it. We're not going to fall for it. We did. And so that's on us. So on behalf of all ska bands in the world, on behalf of all ska bands, current and former and future, I will say we were wrong. We were wrong. We were wrong to look out for them instead of looking out for you. I don't know what we can do to turn it around, but I'll tell you one thing. It starts by men realizing, waking up, and I think this is happening, thank goodness. Thank goodness I don't think Gen Z is starting the fourth wave or the fifth wave of ska. I cross my fingers that they don't, and if they do, I would prefer that they do oi. Maybe we need some racist skins that are looking out and advocating for white people. Because by now, it should be very, very clear that the old way, the MTV way, did not work out well for our tribe. Worked out great for the other tribe. Let me give you the numbers. This is another way what I think we can turn some people around. I'm gonna, on the one hand do this and on the other hand do that with Josh for right now. So you got my apology, but I will add a caveat that might undermine my apology a little bit. Why didn't you try harder to convert me? Would it have killed you to call me back all the time, 5 times, and kept sending me stuff? Would it have killed you to just email me over and over again? Here's this number. Here's this number. Because that's what's needed. That's what's needed. We need to be reminded, The numbers. 50% of the crime being committed by 11% of the people. The programming, Norman Lear, all these shows, show it. That's what I'm trying to do here, is just say, here it is. It's right here. You can see it. This is real. This is not fiction. These shows that Norman Lear produced a whole wave of culture that is anti-white. And white people aren't bad. White people are fucking wonderful. You want to know who's a white angel? Catherine O'Hara, who just died. One of the most beautiful ladies, literally one of the, just her face alone, the glow and the beauty of her face, that smile, that sense of humor. I mean, could you have a more magical creature in the world than that beautiful white lady? And I posted a picture of her and John Candy, and you look at those two together and you just go, holy shit, white people are fucking beautiful. Martin Short, all that, the whole SCTV, white people are so great. And the fact that we've allowed ourselves to be convinced that we're terrible and that we need to apologize, oh man, I don't know. I listened to, because she just died, and I've loved Catherine O'Hara in her roles. It's like there's nothing, as soon as Catherine O'Hara's on the screen, you're just like, okay, this is amazing. This is wonderful. You just love her. How can you not? And so I'm listening to a podcast before I went to bed. There's no new Dana Carvey or there's no new Fly on the Wall. So I just searched for Catherine O'Hara, and there's a Julia Louis-Dreyfus interview from last year. And she has Catherine O'Hara on. And by the way, Julia Louis-Dreyfus has a terrible podcast. She's really bad at it. She reads the whole time, and you can tell she's reading. I don't know why she feels like she has to read, but it's so boring listening to her read. And she's so hard virtue signaling, and her point of her podcast is to show the importance of women and women and women and women and blah, 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 blah. Old women. It's just like, oh, God. Just fucking have a conversation with somebody. Can you do that? Do you have to engineer the whole fucking thing? Quit engineering me. Meanwhile, I'm trying to explain how we need to engineer people right back. But she tells this joke, and I didn't realize this, but Catherine O'Hara, the reason why she's so great is because she was a devout Catholic, And they start talking about this story about how Tim Burton got her husband and her a honeymoon vacation to tour the Vatican. And they were talking about how, they went through the Vatican. And you could tell that I didn't know this about Catherine O'Hara. I never did any dig. But looking back, you can tell that the reason why she was always wholesome is because she is wholesome. One of the first videos I saw in tribute to her was somebody rolling up to her in an airport. It says, "Hey, Catherine, you're amazing. What role do you want to be remembered for?" This is probably about a year ago. And she doesn't think at all. She looks a tiny bit to the side for a second. She goes, "Well, as a mother, I want to be remembered as a mother to my kids, whose names are Matthew and Luke." She could have had Mark and John in there too, but a picture started to emerge that I didn't know about. But I think she was a religious person, a good person. That's what we loved about her face, and John Candy's face too. You look at those faces and you say, these are good. This is good people. You know? White people, good white people. Anyway, Julie Louis-Dreyfus, I think she's Jewish. I think everybody on Seinfeld was Jewish, right? But she knows Catherine O'Hara. She's just gone through this story about visiting the Vatican. And Julie Louis-Dreyfus tries to tell a joke about a cop pulls over two priests, and he goes, two Catholic priests or whatever, high ups at the Vatican, and he goes, "Hey, we're looking for two pedophiles." And one priest looks at the other priest, and he goes, "We'll do it." That's the joke. But Catherine O'Hara, her response to that joke is, "No, no, no." And then Julia has to apologize, like, "Oh, shoot, I shouldn't have told that joke to a Catholic girl like you." She goes, and what does Catherine do? She goes, "Hey, if something's funny, it's funny." But her reaction said everything. Catherine O'Hara kept a place alive for religion. Now, we can debate Christianity and all that stuff as much as you want to, but the intent is what matters most. And you could see that her intent was to keep a place in her life for the spiritual realm, the non-Hollywood realm, and that showed through. Anyway, that's a little bit of a tangent, but yeah, we gotta not let these good people that's also the John Candy, the Catherine O'Hara. I'm making fun of the Provo ska people, myself included, all these guys. But I look at these guys even now. I'm dunking on them. I'm talking shit about them. But let me tell you something. Underneath that are good people, and that's what they're doing it. Their good nature has been manipulated. That's what's so ugly about this subversion, the programming. Is it seizes upon their good nature. When we were doing that in our ska bands, we had the very best of intentions. Those guys probably still do. When what's-his-name blocked me a couple months ago and called me a Nazi, he was just doing to me what I did to Scary Hippy Guy. He had the best of intentions. He was scared. He was afraid. I can't be a Nazi. I can't be a racist. I got to be good. Therefore, call Merkley evil, or call Josh Scary Hippy Guy. When the reality is Scary Hippy Guy, Josh, was looking out for me and his friends. When he was paying attention, being all serious and brooding in the back of the room, he's thinking, I don't want to impose thoughts on him, but this is what I'm doing now. He's thinking, what's happening to my friends? What's happening to my people? Why are they all bowing down to black people? Why are they putting their interests first? I'd like to imagine now that he saw it. He just saw it, and I didn't. But yeah, I wish you would have sent me more stuff. And I think that's what we got to do. We just got to keep, it's still right now, it's still such a icky topic and nobody likes it, that we go, oh, I got to write them off. My white sisters, my this is, nothing I can do. But really, there is. You can keep emailing them. Statistics, videos, this, that. It sounds gross. Sounds like you're trying to scare them, but really is trying to wake them up. All these people you're trying to be hero for, they don't want you to be the hero. They don't care about you. They're stealing from you. This Somalia thing, perfect example, but we didn't need that one. Just a black welfare state in the United States of America right now, already. The data is clear. A white person who lives to be 80 years old will, out of their own pocket, pay $250,000 to the black community. That's money you could have invested. That's a nest egg that could have grown over time. It could have grown into $4 million. Not saying you would have done it, but they're stealing. They're just taking that money from you. And an average black person in the United States over the course of their lifetime receives almost $1 million because their population is smaller. So it's like four white people end up giving this black person $1 million that he doesn't have anything to show for it. I mean, look, and I know it's not just about black and white. I know that the other tribes are in here too. I don't know why we talk mostly about the black and white thing because, quite frankly, that's the biggest drain. And it is. The biggest drain on your life is the black population of the United States of America. If you're an American, that's what's draining you the most. For no benefit of yours. There's no benefit to you because they don't look out for you. They're not paying it back. They're ungrateful. They hate you. You know this. I don't need to tell you this. But yeah, just before you get down on yourself and before you think about how awful white people are, and before you want to call yourself scary hippie guy or call yourself a Nazi or turn off Jared Taylor, turn me off or whatever, you just got to think of Catherine O'Hara and John Candy and how wonderful and how this whole mess has started because our good nature was manipulated and we became fucking ska bands. Anyway, I think that's all for now. Go listen to some ska music and punch yourself in the face. And then give yourself a hug. Forgive yourself for your ska band background. And find your scary hippie guy in your life. The person that you called Nazi. The person that you tried to convince that individualism was a better path. Find that person and apologize. For real, really apologize. And also hold their feet to the fire for asking them why they didn't try harder. So that's really what I'm doing. Josh, I am sorry. I also wish you would have tried harder. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks for listening. Unnecessary outro song to totally waste more